Hi everyone, it's me, Arielle, and it's Wednesday Warriors, and today we're going to be talking about something a little bit different. We're actually starting a 6-week rotation discussing the different health behavior model changes through the process of recovery. And this week is week 1, and I'm going to be talking about pre-contemplation, being in denial, others being concerned about behaviors and health, refusing to listen, being convinced that behaviors are helpful, important, and life-giving, and maybe talking a little bit about brainwashing, the brainwashing nature of an eating disorder and how it works its hold. And that sounds like a lot to discuss in one brief video, so I'm going to do my best and maybe focus on some things more than others, but hopefully you can get something out of it. And I know for a fact that so many of you out there dealing with an eating disorder, dealing with recovery from an eating disorder, have understood all of these aspects of the pre-contemplation at some point. Maybe you're past that, maybe you're struggling with it right now, but hopefully maybe doing a little bit of self-reflection and listening to what goes into that sort of a process can be helpful today. If you hear any strange noises in the background, I'm sitting in my living room on the floor and my 2 kittens are being very rambunctious, and they're not in view of this video at all, but I have a kitten named Tumbler who is special needs, and he makes some pretty strange noises from time to time. So if you hear anything, it's him. I'm home alone, and he makes noises that don't sound like cat noises at all. He sometimes sounds like a bird or an owl, so that would be him. I want to start off with saying that being in denial in regards to having an eating disorder is probably the #1 most common feeling that people have. And this is just going off of personal experience from talking to countless individuals that are struggling or have struggled from an eating disorder. It's just, for some reason, so many people who are struggling with an eating disorder think that what they're doing has some reason or is somehow a means to an end in a logical enough way that they don't really have a problem. Or what I see more often happening is that people are constantly comparing themselves to other people with eating disorders. So they think that their eating disorder is not as legitimate as someone else's eating disorder because maybe these other people or this other person that they're comparing themselves to are thinner, have lost more weight, or eat less per day, or have more trauma issues surrounding their disorder. There are any number of things that people use to convince themselves that they don't really have a problem. And other mental disorders and diseases are like this as well. Addictions can be like this, where people are in denial that they really have a problem. And I see it all the time with eating disorders, and we're very, very good at convincing ourselves that we're not quite bad enough to get help, or maybe we're not quite sick enough to warrant the kind of help that we maybe could seek. And I know, unfortunately, a lot of places out there, particularly in Europe, and even other places besides the United States that I'm less familiar with, they base need for care upon weight and certain health tests and things like that. And it's really very sad because there are so many people with eating disorders that may be at, quote unquote, a healthy weight, or have not yet shown severe symptoms, in a health category. And it's tragic because a lot of people are trying to get the help so that they don't become so incredibly sick and ill that they do long-term damage to their bodies. And it can be very hard for insurance to cover you if you're not below a certain weight, or for a hospital to take you for inpatient or outpatient treatment, all sorts of things like that. But that's another thing that sort of feeds this feeling of denial for a lot of people struggling with an eating disorder. If someone in a health profession or a mental health profession sort of tells them that they are not bad enough to warrant help, or that they need to be sicker in order to get the help they need, they think that they are okay enough to continue on as they are. And it can be very, very brutal to someone's well-being. In talking about this time of denial, what often happens is you have friends or family members or coworkers or people in your life that become very concerned, whether it's because of your physical appearance or because of your behaviors or habits they notice, or because of your general demeanor, that maybe you're more depressed or maybe you're acting suicidal or whatever the case may be. But they become very worried, and sometimes interventions are staged. Sometimes, people sit you down and have a confrontation. I know way back several years ago, I was confronted about my eating disorder when it became impossible for my friends to ignore. And this can be a crossroads for someone struggling with an eating disorder, because they're sort of given the option to choose recovery or stay as they are, in the pit of their eating disorder. And they are forced to make a decision because someone is sitting right there in front of them, or multiple people are sitting right there in front of them saying, I am worried about you. This is what I see happening. What are you going to do about it? Or you need help, or I want to get you help. And sometimes people will stay in denial. Sometimes people will stay in denial but agree that they will try to get some help even though they don't believe that they have a problem. Sometimes people will actually see the light and think, I really do have something going on here that is not normal and I do need help. There are so many different things that can happen because every person out there is completely different, has completely different family and friends, and has completely different experiences, completely different bodies, completely different, mental aspects of this disorder. So it's very important still, even when you're letting go of this denial, not to compare yourself to other people who are struggling and who are not struggling. A lot of people, before they choose recovery, or maybe while they're thinking about choosing recovery but they haven't made the 100% commitment, they are trying to convince themselves that their behaviors and their eating disorder are actually very important and very vital to their life. And I know, especially for people who have been eating disordered for many years, it's almost as though they don't know any different and it has become normal to them. So letting go of that piece is sort of like letting go of a piece of themselves. And I know for me, my eating disorder, more particularly being a very, very thin girl, was a huge part of my identity. It was how I classified myself, which is actually very sad because today I would never want to be classified as that. I'm so much more. I'm so many things. And, I'm very happy in the person that I am today. But, there was a time when I thought that if I weighed X amount of pounds more than I was currently weighing, that I would just not be me and I would not fit into the category that I wanted to fit into, and that I would somehow be disappointing myself, have less control, any number of things like that. And it's so easy to have that willpower and convince yourself that you're really doing the right thing by either cutting your food intake or binging and purging or just binging or whatever it is you're doing. What it really is it's abuse of your body. And, it may be the way that you are coping. It may be the way that you're dealing with something or expressing yourself or, working through trauma, but it's really very harmful and it's self-harm. And I know that we often think of self-harm as people who cut or burn themselves or do things of that nature, but really taking such a toll on your body by choice is very much so self-harm. I've always said that you can be honest about struggling, and you should be honest about struggling, because struggling means that you're fighting something, that you're not just sitting there and taking it or giving in, and that is really saying something. So don't be ashamed of having an eating disorder as long as you're doing something about it. Recovery can be a years-long process, and while that might seem very daunting, you're showing such a sense of strong will by actively fighting something that is really so strong. There is no such thing as giving yourself too many chances. You yourself are the only one who can give you as many chances as you want or need. There's no limit to chances. There's no maximum. I know it's hard to even try. I used to have days where I didn't care about anything. I wanted everything to stop and leave me to sit with myself and fade away into nothingness. I promise you that though I sit here healthy and smiling and trying to give advice week after week, there was a time, several years ago where I was in a hell, and I used to cry until the tears wouldn't come anymore because I've used them all up. And I got sick and tired of it. I know you're probably sick and tired of it now. Maybe you've been sick and tired of it for a really long time. Maybe you're even sick and tired of being sick and tired. But maybe there's something missing. Maybe you're sick and tired, but unfortunately too tired to do anything about it. And that's defeat. Don't allow yourself to be defeated. It's too easy. You're worth so much more than that. In any case, I know it can feel too hard to begin to even try on some days because it's the same old story, the same old song and dance, to just keep going on, to just keep trying again and again. If you've been through this so many times and have been fighting for so long, it gets old and it gets worse. And that's the bad news. The good news is fighting back is the only way you're going to eventually get out of the hell. The good news is there is a way out. It's just really hard to find. But if you want out, you've got to look. And if you're still coming up short, you've got to keep looking. Because the thing is, you're either going to burn out and fade away, or you're going to start climbing that rope to safety and freedom and health and happiness. And those are the only two alternatives, because this awful state of struggling, even if it's going on for a long, long, long time, it only lasts so long. You need a change. And I don't mean a change in your attempts to recover. I mean a vacation from your normal way of living, from thinking. Nothing eating disorder related, just a plain and simple change, a big one. Something to rip away the focus from your eating disorder, to force you to spend some time reflecting on yourself, to simply be and exist and breathe in that change that's going to surround you. And when you come back from this vacation and you've implemented this change, you might just not be so sick and tired. You'll be fresher, clearer, and better able to put a new foot forward again. And a big change is the only way to get out of this sick and tired, don't care attitude. I'm not saying that there's one answer for everyone, but time away, that mental vacation, in whatever respect is available and possible for you from the same old daily life you have, is very beneficial. You can recharge, restart, refresh. And it can't be something subtle. It has to be something big and significant. You have a lot of chances waiting, and you have to take them. And what I mean by this mental vacation is, a week or 2 days where you can really sit and not go on the internet and not watch TV and not count calories. You have to sit there and you have to really do some self-reflection exercises. And this is not something that I can tell you what to do. You have to sit there and you have to understand that the only way that you're going to be able to get out of denial and get ready for help is to sit with yourself and understand that you don't want to be the way that you are anymore, and that you don't want to live the way that you're living. And whatever it's going to take to make you realize that, you have to do it. If it means keeping a journal or writing something down every single hour of every day for a week when you're not sleeping. If it means, talking to other people and asking them what they think about what you're going through. Some sort of deep self-reflection, some sort of way for you to just understand that it's okay to give up on the eating disorder. It's okay to let it go. You have to address the tunnel. It's funny how you can grow to know yourself as a person, a whole person, and actually like what you know. It's a fun discovery sometimes to dip into the soul of someone who's been with you all along, but you've never really seen as a complete entity. And it's so easy to know yourself as depressed or crazy or worried or anxious or as a body. But to really know yourself for what you are totally, it's something that's really altogether fascinating. And of course, you may not like everything that you learn about yourself, but we all have faults and discrepancies within ourselves. It's only natural to find yourself imperfect. But you know, it's true what your teachers always used to say: nobody's perfect. But you can be good at being you. You can be real. I list a lot of techniques and strategies for a recovery helpful lifestyle on my blog and in my videos, and I feel very strongly about all of them. But when it comes right down to it, you have to be willing to go into yourself and feel, and then get rid of all of the stuff that's in there that's holding you back, and get rid of all the voices from others, and the worry, and the self-pity, and the not feeling good enough, and only then are you going to be able to get rid of the pain. The right path is never the easiest one, and the more you struggle, the better you will feel when you've overcome what it is that's bringing you down. It's such a victory. In essence, everything worth fighting for starts with a struggle. And believe me, your health and happiness are definitely worth that struggle. I may not have known at the beginning that I would feel as good as I do these days, but I wouldn't go back to that horrid beginning for anything in the world. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. That's pretty much what I am all about day to day, to let people out there know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And if you don't see it yet, climb a little further. And when you begin to see the glowing edges of that light, you will want with all your might to reach it and come out on the other side, free at last from the stifling and dark tunnel that you've struggled through for so long. And that only makes sense, right? So you have to keep reaching for that light. And I know that saying all of this is easier than doing, but every action starts with a thought. So let this be your thought and go forward. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I will see you next time.